Hey everyone, I'm Tom and welcome to the channel. Today we've got a little bit of a different video today, a little bit of a different angle. I had some requests for a bookshelf tour and I figured why not? Let's go ahead and do it. So I have a couple different bookshelves that we'll go through. This is obviously the view you guys normally see. There is normally a chair over here, but I had to move it out of the way so I could show you everything down at the bottom. But we're gonna go ahead and start up here at the top. So this top shelf, I used to have a bunch of different stuff up, and I actually went ahead and moved most of it for this artwork that you guys actually never see. This is the artwork from the Three Body Problem special edition from the Broken Binding. I'm not a part of the Broken Binding and everything, and I loved the covers for it. It's some of my favorite art for any book cover that's happened, and it just so happens to be for my favorite series of all time. So I did, actually, my fiance bought these for me. So I at least have the prints of the art. So let's see if I can get in here a little bit. So that is from book one. That's book two. And then book three we have over here. And I just absolutely love the art. I think the books look fantastic. And then I actually, over this way, have some figures from Naruto. I'm a big Naruto fan. And so those are just some little characters I have up there. I don't have too many knickknacks. A lot of them are gifts and stuff, but that is what we've got going on the top shelf. And one thing you're going to notice as we go through a lot of these books is I am mostly an audiobook listener. So you've seen my self-made covers and everything. And so a lot of the books I have are actually old books and books that I have had for years and years and years. So like starting here, this is a great example. This is a young adult series. I forget the Gray Griffins. I remember really liking some of the artwork when I was a kid. I think I probably read a lot of these. Oh, these were probably middle school. Same here. I've actually had a lot of people also remember this series, the Bartimaeus trilogy. Same thing. I remember really liking the cover for these, and you can see they are definitely well loved. Some cracked spines and stuff going on, but these are, once again from middle school. Same thing with these are my original Hunger Games books. They are, once again, another middle grade or middle school read that I think I had. I think that's when I read them. Um, Fun story here for the Divine Comedy. I read The Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons when those were really popular. That was also middle school. And if you know what goes on in these books, the Divine Comedy is very heavily referenced. And I, for some reason, thought as an eighth grader that I would be able to read the Divine Comedy. And I probably made it 5 pages in, and I don't think I ever have picked it back up since. Maybe it's something I could pick up now and understand a little bit better, but at the time, it was so over my head. But it's one of those books that it just kept and had around forever. Some James Patterson stuff here. This is once again all middle grade book. I remember enjoying those, but I don't think I ever finished the series, and I think there's a bunch of books from that now. And then we get to some more Dan Brown stuff. Always been a big fan of Dan Brown. The last book there, Origin, I think came out 2019-ish, and I still even enjoyed it then. I actually have his newest book on audio that I haven't listened to just yet, but I would really like to. And then we get over here to my original Twilight books, which is just so fun. I think I got those, that probably was middle school as well, and I think I read them all over like winter break. So in like 2 or 3 weeks I read the entire Twilight saga series, and so that is my original box set. And come over here. One thing I don't like about these shelves is that the corners here, it's hard to get books to stand together nicely. So stuff ends up overlapping. So then we have just a couple other random stuff. This is actually manga, so I should move that. This Black Paradox is actually some manga that I should probably move if to keep everything in line, but that's okay. Beyonders, that's some, if you remember Fablehaven, once again, another middle grade series. This was another series he wrote. Frankenstein, that is the first edition of Frankenstein I read, and then we start to get to some other stuff. So this was Jenny Wirtz actually sent this to Rise Held Chasm copy to me. I have not read it yet. I'm still working on the Words of Light and Shadow, but I will have this to read at some point. Peace and Turmoil. This is a book from Elliot Brooks, another booktuber. It's one of the first booktuber books I ever knew existed. I actually haven't read it, but maybe at some point I will. I think
she's working on book 3. I think book 2's out. Then we have some of these just Barnes& Noble classic. What this is all of the Grimm fairy tales, this big one. I started reading those at one point, and then stopped, but I think it's a project I would like to do maybe next year, is read all of those fairy tales, and then the other one is just a copy of Dracula. And then we get some other fun stuff. This is one of probably the most underrated book I have read since I started BookTube, The Never Ending End of the World. It's a sci-fi thriller mystery kind of book. Absolutely, highly recommend it. It's super good. And then we get to one of my favorite books, and not that I have read it, but it's just the novelization of my favorite movie, Pacific Rim, which I just like to have because that's a fun cover. And then these two books for Ender's Game, they're actually signed in there by Orson Scott Card, which is kind of cool. And then my copy of Dune that, hopefully I will be reading Dune Messiah here soon. And then let's come down to the next shelf. So this is probably the books you see the most in my videos. Up there is a candle that Brian from BellTube sent me, I think 2 Christmases ago. He does, all kinds of fun skits and everything. And that is the one he sent to me. So that's super fun. And then that is my copy of my favorite book series of all time, The Three-Body Problem. So, even though I don't have the broken binding ones, like I said, I have the artwork and the books. So that's probably good enough. We have just a little bit of Superman stuff here. I don't have really any comic stuff on this shelf outside of this Superman book. It has all kinds of just like history and tidbits and stuff that's going on here. And then we have a little bit of an indie section here. So we have the Way of Adan, The Prophet of Adan, the Adan trilogy, plus While Darkness Gathers by Philip Chase. Really enjoyed that trilogy, probably top 10 trilogy, top 10 series of all time for me. So that's there. And then that naked hardcover is the first book in Chance Dillon's series, Mercy, not Ills of Fate, that's the second book. Tears of the Fallen is the first one there, and I just absolutely love that artwork. So funny enough, I put it there so you would be able to see it in my videos, and I'm pretty sure my head blocks it the entire time. And then you can't really see it, but actually behind that is my mass market paperback collection of A Game of Thrones. I'm not sure if you can kind of see that box back there just a little bit, and that is holding some of that stuff together there. And then we get to kind of our Sanderson section. So mass market of Mistborn, all of that stuff, and then secret projects and Stormlight. So all of that fun stuff there. And then up top here is actually Chance just sent me book 2 of the Mercy series, and that is Ills the Fate. Because the other one gets so blocked by my head, I went ahead and put this one there. And then we get to 2 of my absolute favorite physical books that I own. And these are from the Folio Society. And the first one is my favorite Ian Fleming James Bond book, Diamonds Are Forever. That's the slipcase for it, and the art on that is beautiful. And then obviously all kinds of awesome artwork and everything in there. My dream would be to have the entire 14-book collection from Ian Fleming in here from the Folio Society, but that is very expensive, especially with shipping and everything. So I don't think that's something that's ever going to happen, but maybe I can get a couple more before everything is said and done. And then another Folio Society, All the Pretty Horses, one of my favorite books I've ever read. And once again, it has the Folio Society treatment. I love the blue and the red and that brown kind of color it's got going on there. So it's super, super nice. And then we're going to drop down to a shelf that you guys probably can't see in my videos, but it starts here with kind of my Janny Wirtz Wars of Light and Shadow section. Maybe I should move to Ride to Hell's Chasm down here at some point, but you can see the ones that I purchased, which are these, easily attainable ones. And then Janny has sent me Grand Conspiracy, Peril's Gate, and Trader's Knot. So I'm going to probably have to go back to buying these ones because I'm about to finish Trader's Knot, and that's not on this shelf, but we'll get to it. Then we have some more Orson Scott Card. After I read Ender's Game when I was young, I wanted to read more from him. I think I got that at like some secondhand bookshop and never read it. I don't know if it's any good. And then just some other random dragon books. Obviously, I think a lot of people, and we get into dragon as fantasy fans and everything. One cool thing about these Dan Rooney books is one of them is signed by Dan Rooney. So I'm a massive Steelers fan, and so having something signed from Dan Rooney is super cool to me. And that's why I have two copies of it. One is not signed and one is signed. So I think I read out of obviously the non-signed one, and tried to keep the signed one in better condition. Not the easiest thing to do when you're a kid and you have something that you don't realize is as cool as it is at the time. And then we have some more Dragon books. Like I said, this was a series that I don't think I actually ever finished, but I really enjoyed. It got kind of weird towards the end. I remember some of that, but yeah, that's all that. And then we have a couple small books over here. Call of the Wild, one of my favorite books of all time. A Christmas Carol, the only book I ever reread. And then that is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer over there, which is one of my favorite books as well. A nice, I think it's just a Barnes and Noble edition. My original collection of the Narnia trilogy, another copy of Tears of the Fallen. That's the mass market, or I don't know if that's considered I think that's a trade paperback for that series. So a couple copies of that. And then let's see what else we got going on over here. We get back to a little bit more of some of the reads I did when I was younger. So this Evermore stuff is like very early romantasy, almost in a similar vein as Twilight kind of stuff. But I really enjoyed that series as a kid and everything. And then Godkiller, I have just the hard copy of that because this is one of my favorite covers ever. I wish the series ended better than it did. Unfortunately, it kind of changed gears on what it originally was versus what it ended up being. And then these are my original Harry Potter books. So this is the original set I got. So like, I think book 5, 6, and 7 are all books that I like went and got like day of releases and everything. At least book 7. I know I can still remember going to the bookstore for book 7 and getting it and like instantly starting to read it in the car. And then Of Ants and Dinosaurs is a book I bought when I was on a trip to Ireland. And so it's the one book I brought back from that trip. And that's a really fun one because I think in the United States, that book is called something completely different. It's called like, what is it? The Cretaceous something or something like that. But Of the Ants and Dinosaurs is a much better name. And that cover looks a lot better if you have ever seen it before. And then we finally get down to the very, very bottom where we have some miscellaneous stuff. So down here, I have a copy of Darien. I have some of Daniel Green's books, some Tolkien stuff. There's that Fablehaven series. Once again, probably my favorite series I read as a kid. Some old hardcover Robert Jordan books that I found. Those are, not the easiest thing to find. So when I find them, even if it's secondhand, I try to pick them up. And then we get over here to mostly manga. So this is my manga collection. I stopped collecting manga because it takes up so much space. And so you can see here, I was a big fan of Attack on Titan until it kind of, to me, fell off. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, but it just got to the point where manga was taking up so much room that I couldn't justify picking it up when I mostly can get it from the library and everything. And then at the very, very end, we have Discovery by the Mittens. That's, John, Amy, and Jacob over at Talking Story. So I've got that one down there, and I'm very much looking forward to the second book in that, which I'll probably do on audio because they have such a stacked lineup for it that I will probably go ahead and do that. So this is the bookshelf you guys see. And if you are an original person who's been around on the channel for a long time, you will slightly recognize this bookshelf over here. So this bookshelf used to be behind it before I bought that other bookshelf and moved some stuff around. So we'll go ahead and start quickly up at the top again. Just some knick-knack Pokemon stuff, nothing too crazy. And this is actually a bookshelf that both my fiance and I use. So there's a bunch of different stuff on here that's not all mine. I, who have never known men, keeps falling over. So occasionally if you hear a thud in one of my videos, it is because that book has fallen. And then up here, I think this is mostly all of her stuff on this shelf. Yeah, this is mostly her. So I can't say too much about it. I do love this Watermoon cover. That's the only reason we actually still have this book, because I don't think either of us, or I didn't read this. So we both really like this cover, but my fiance didn't really like the book that much. Then we got some Fourth Wing stuff going on. Then we get down here to where things turn into a little bit of a mess. I did not try to hide what my bookshelves look like normally. So here, this shelf I normally use, you'll see me reaching over to grab stuff in my videos. And so this shelf and the shelf below it, I use for that a lot. So you'll see my current copy of a book I'm physically reading a lot of time is here. You can see some of my self-made covers. So these are some books that I want to read in the future or had plans to read at one point and didn't get to. I have some comics over here. These are ones that I want to read. And I also, those are kind of scattered all over the house. Alchemized. This is a much, I don't know if protested or discussed book, but I don't know too much about it. It was actually a gift that I got for Christmas. And then we get to my collection of Sun Eater stuff. Obviously, Shadows Upon Time is signed, and I got that at the gala. And here you can see more of my books that I want to read and all of that fun stuff. And then one more shelf, which once again, kind of just some random mixed stuff. I don't know if anything on there is mine. And then as we go down even further, there are all of my signed copies I have of the Sun Eater stuff that I hand drew. This pile is all stuff that from previous years. So I don't even know what the first one here is. Okay, so yeah, this is just for this year. And some of the stuff under here, yeah, so you can see this is a bunch of older stuff that I read in the past year or so, and I just have my signed stuff. A lot of this is old books. Again, a lot of these were gifts, so like a lot of this stuff, like all of these were gifts from different people based on, you know, what they thought I might like to read. And then we get to the very, very bottom here. This is a huge collection of graphic novels from comics that I have read. So you can see it's pretty stacked up there. And this is where everything just kind of falls apart. I have the most beautiful book I own down here. This is the Wheel of Time leather-bound edition from Dragonsteel. And partially that's because I don't know where I want to put it yet. I don't want it to be in direct sunlight and all of that stuff. But also I'm not sure if I'm going to need a replacement or not. And then I just have some other random stuff. A lot of this stuff over here on the far right are textbooks from college and stuff. So like that blue cover there is actually like a C++ textbook or something like that. So yeah, that is all of my bookshelves here in the office. We actually have one more bookshelf, but none of the books on it are mine. I'm not 100% sure what all my fiance has on it, but that is kind of everything that I have going on here. If you have any questions or want to know about any other books you saw in here that I didn't really touch on, we can. Just to quickly mention on my Audible library, I think I have something like almost 400 books on there that I have purchased over having Audible since like 2019, 2018. So there's definitely a lot of books that I have there that aren't represented here, but this is kind of where the state of my shelves are now and everything. So hope you enjoyed today's different video. We'll be back to a little bit more of a regular scheduled programming here coming up with a TBR and all that fun stuff. But that's all for me. And remember to read what you want when you want.